all. This is Umesh, History Faculty at Manifest IAS, and this is the current JOTS initiative. And as part of this current JOTS initiative, we have started a series on World Heritage Sites. And as part of this series, we are clustering together various World Heritage Sites according to their religious inspiration or their architectural style or the location. Based on many factors, we have classified these World Heritage Sites into different clusters. And as part of these clusters, we have picked up the Buddhist Heritage Sites of India. And as part of this Buddhist Heritage Sites, we have already discussed in our previous video about the Buddhist Heritage Site of Sanchi, the Buddhist Heritage Site of Sanchi, where you see a clear evolution from the early mounds to the stupa architectural format along with the early temples of India. All of these things we can see in the Sanchi stupa. Today we are going to have a continuation of this Buddhist Heritage sites, and as part of this we are going to have a look at two sites today. Okay, that is Bodh Gaya and Nalanda University. Both of them are World Heritage Sites. What is their significance with respect to this heritage and culture? What is their history and other aspects along with the architecture? We are going to have a discussion today. Okay, now if you look at the Bodh Gaya and Nalanda University, both of them, they are present in the present state of Bihar. In the present state of Bihar, there is a location of these two sites. And now we'll have a look at the same things. Okay, just for revision sake, I am talking about World Heritage Site is something which is of outstanding universal value, and the first 6 criteria, they belong to the cultural heritage sites. The last 3 criteria, the 4 criteria, belong to the natural heritage sites. Today we are going to have a look at which of these criteria the following heritage sites are going to fit into. Okay, now as part of this we are going to have a look at Bodh Gaya in Bihar.
Subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.
First and foremost thing, Bodh Gaya in Bihar is something which we are going to have a look at. See, Bodh Gaya in Bihar is the place where Buddha attained his enlightenment on the banks of a river Niranjana. Okay, sitting under a peepal tree, he attained enlightenment, which is a very significant event in Buddhist history. In fact, he attained his nirvana there, which means blowing out of his desire. That is the reason why this is considered to be a sacred spot in Buddhism, and this sacred spot of Buddhism, even though it was in decline during medieval period, in modern times it is again rising up with the Buddhists across the world. They are visiting this site and they have constructed many of their own monasteries also here. We are going to have a look at these things too. So when it comes to Bodh Gaya, see, here also the locational history is one and the same. See, the thing is, first and foremost, it is the place where Buddha attained enlightenment, and it contains the Mahabodhi temple 1, the Vajrasana, that is the second one. Sacred Bodhi tree is also present, and there are 6 sacred sites of Buddha's enlightenment which are also associated with this thing. Okay, along with that we have the Vedika also present here. Okay, when these were constructed, what is the architectural style, we are going to discuss. See, as part of this, first and foremost we have to understand that these sites, they are not constructed by one single king or emperor. There was an accretion, okay, because it remained a sacred spot nearly till 12th century AD from 6th century BC. That is the reason why there is a lot of accretion which was happening at this site. As part of this accretion, numerous structures were added to this. Many of them were renovated later. All of these things happened during the Buddhist history in India. Okay, when it comes to all these things, okay, first we will have a look at the brief history here. So the first Mahabodhi temple here was constructed by King Ashoka in 250 BC. As part of his Buddhist constructions, as we discussed earlier, in Sanchi too he built the stupa, and here in Mahabodhi, in Bodh Gaya, he built the first basic Mahabodhi temple, and he is the one who placed the Vajrasana at the exact spot where Buddha got his enlightenment, in beneath the Bodhi tree. So Vajrasana and Mahabodhi temple basic structure were constructed by Ashoka first. Then after that, there were many additions which were done to this structure, and as part of these additions, okay, during the Kushana period, the current Mahabodhi temple as it stands today, the core of this temple has been built during Kushana temple. It means that the Ashoka's Mahabodhi temple, which was initially built, it was lost. On that, Kushana's built a Mahabodhi temple. Then after that, during the Gupta, Pala and Sena period, Gupta, Pala and Sena period, much more additions were done to this central structure, and the structure as it stands today, okay, it was given its final shape during Pala and Sena period, and this is the brief history. Then apart from that, in 1200 AD, okay, this temple, this entire complex, it was lost, okay, there was a lot of destruction which occurred at this Mahabodhi complex, and it was later restored by this person, Sir Alexander Cunningham. He is the founder of Archaeological Survey of India. He is a very, very important person, Sir Alexander Cunningham, and he started the restoration work here, and now when it comes to the history, these are the important aspects. And even during the Shunga period, okay, just I forgot to show you, during the Shunga period too, just like Sanchi Stupa, here also they added Vedikas, okay, around the Mahabodhi temple, what Vedikas are and stuff we discussed in the last class. As part of architecture also we are going to discuss. Now we will have a look at the architectural format. Then apart from that, in history itself, two foreign travelers, one is Fahian and the second one is Huanzang. Both of them, they visited this temple, and there is a king called Kittisri Megha of Sri Lanka, and he is the one who gave the permission, who got the permission from Samudragupta to erect a Sangrama here. Okay, Sangarama means it is a monastery. Monastery means where monks reside. It is also known as Vihara. So he constructed a Sangarama, particularly for the sake of the Sinhalese Buddhist monks who are visiting this site. Okay, then apart from that, now we are going to have a discussion about, when it comes to history also, one more important aspect is there, that is with respect to the Bodhi tree. See, the Bodhi tree here was the original Bodhi tree, but it was during medieval period, or during early medieval period, it was destroyed by a Hindu Shaivite who is a fanatic king by the name of Shashanka. Shashanka is the one who killed or who cut this Bodhi tree because he was against Buddhists. Then after that, one more sapling of the Bodhi tree, which was initially taken from India to Sri Lanka to Anuradhapura. This same tree, it provided the sapling for replanting the Bodhi tree in Mahabodhi. So Shashanka is the one who destroyed this temple. So Huanzang, Faxian, Kittisri Megha, then apart from that, Gupta, Pala, Sena, Shunga dynasty, and along with Ashoka, all of them, they contributed to this structure. When it comes to the architecture, let's have a look at the architecture. See, this entire structure is laid out in a park-like enclosure, and as part of this structure, there are two shikaras of this format. How they are present, I'll talk about it. Then apart from these two shikaras, we find many votive sculptures of this smaller format. Votive stupa, not sculpture. Votive stupa are smaller stupas which are commemorative stupas. Let's suppose I am a great king, I visit Mahabodhi temple. Okay, then what happens automatically? In order to inscribe my presence at a Mahabodhi temple, I erect a small votive stupa. Votive stupa is in order to commemorate my visit to this particular site. So in this format, we find many votive stupas here. Okay, then apart from that, when it comes to the architectural style, see here, this structure, it is neither Dravida nor Nagara. It has a unique structure of a stepped truncated pyramid. Okay, the pyramid structure is also the same way. Truncated means which shrinks from bottom to top. Okay, anything which shrinks from bottom to top, it is known as truncated shape. Okay, and it has a stepped pyramidical style. You can see it very clearly here. It has a stepped pyramidical style. Okay, and it is known as a truncated pyramid, stepped truncated pyramidical shape, which is neither Nagara nor Dravida. It has elements of both of them, and in fact, this structure, it is inspired by the Gandharan architecture. And the inspiration for this temple, it did not survive. It means that you don't find this a similar kind of structure anywhere else, but it is written down, or it is remembered that it has been constructed in the format of the Gandhara Stupa style. And as part of this stepped truncated pyramid, you have, and on top of it, you have a hemispherical stupa. Even though hemisphere is not very clearly visible here, but it is a hemispherical stupa on top of which there is a chetri or finials. Okay, finials or chetri. Then apart from that, there are four smaller replicas of the central shrine on the four corners of this temple complex. There are four smaller similar temple complexes which are present on the four corners. They are miniature versions of the central shrine. They are present on the four corners. They are particularly meant for decorative purposes, more or less decorative purposes. Then apart from that, this Mahabodhi temple, it also signified that Buddhism moved from uniconic representation to iconic representation. This is very, very important because in Sanchi we've clearly seen that there is no representation of Buddha anywhere. He is represented in symbols, but here in Mahabodhi temple we find numerous images of Buddha in the format of numerous images of Buddha in iconic format, and this entire structure has been built in brick and usage of stucco. Stucco is the binding material, and it is also the material in which sculpture is typically made. So it is an entirely brick built structure, and it is one of the earliest brick built structure which has survived till date. So this is the basic architectural features. Okay, let's check whether we have done all the things. Okay, the central shrine is 55 meters high, and the most important aspect of this is this central shrine. It became the inspiration for Buddhist architecture in other countries in the format of pagoda. This is very, very important. Pagoda is a basic architectural style in China, Japan, Southeast Asia, and in most of the other countries. And this pagoda style, it is inspired from this truncated pyramidical style. Then apart from that, this also became the basis for Hindu and Jaina temple structures. Yes, if you see today, Hindu and Jaina structures, all of them, they have this Shikara format. Okay, yes or no? Both Dravida and Nagara, they have the Shikara format. So this Shikara format, it is an inspired form from the Buddhist architecture which is present at Bodh Gaya. That is why it represented an important evolution in architecture. Then apart from that, when it comes to this temple also has a Vedika, as discussed in our previous video. The Vedika I'll show you. This is the Vedika. Okay, this is the Vedika, which is the gateway, which is not the gateway, which is the gate, which is not the gate. In fact, it can be considered a compound wall which differentiates the sacred from the profane. We have already discussed it in the last class. So when it comes to this Vedika, it has a Suchi. Suchi means the Stambha. This is the Suchi, and this is called as Vushnisha, the top notch. Okay, and similarly we have medallions here, just like Sanchi. All of these things are added during the Shunga period. Here you can see the hemispherical dome. Okay, even though it is not very clearly visible, here the finials are present, which are Chhetris. All of these things are present here. Then apart from this, there is also a Ashokan pillar. One of the most famous of Ashokan pillars is also present here, and this pillar, it did not survive. What is the capital, we don't know exactly, but luckily for us, there was one symbolism of this is the Ashokan pillar which was present at the Mahabodhi temple, and this Ashokan pillar, it had a capital of elephant. Elephant capital was present on this, but it has been lost for us now. But one representation of this elephant stupa, elephant pillar, which is present at Bodh Gaya temple, it is present on the temple stucco wall. So that is the reason why we know that this is a elephant capital. Okay, this is the typical Buddhist pagoda style. Today some Vietnamese Buddhists, they came and constructed this Buddhist pagoda style architecture temple in Mahabodhi temple, in the Mahabodhi temple complex. In this fashion, most of the countries, in their own architectural style, they have built numerous stupas in this Mahabodhi because it is very sacred spot for Buddhism. This is the Vietnamese pagoda, and look at the similarity with the current Buddhist temple. It also has step truncated pyramid. All more or less, most of the features are similar. Then this is the Mahabodhi tree which is present, and beneath it you can see there is this Vedika, and inside the Vedika there is a Vajrasana. I have given the representational image of Vajrasana. This is the Vajrasana which has been erected during or set up during the time of Ashoka. It has the 48 design structure with animals. All of these things are present here. This is set up by Ashoka. Then apart from that, today there is a 80 feet stone statue of Buddha which is present, which is erected in modern time. It is not of great architectural significance, but 80 feet Buddha statue is also present here. Then apart from that, I talked about it has been inspired by the Gandhara school of architecture, Shikara. Okay, 80 feet statue of Buddha. I talked about Sri Mahabodhi I talked about this also, that the sapling has been brought from there. Then apart from this, because of the step truncated pyramid style, there are numerous niche and arch motifs and fine engravings present on the tower. Okay, obviously when you have a step truncated pyramid, there will be many places in order to place the sculpture, which are known as niche, arch motifs and fine engravings. All of these things are also present. Okay, on this pyramidical design. This finishes the discussion on the Mahabodhi temple. Now we are going to look at the next site. This is very, very important. Ashokan pillar, pagoda, Mahabodhi temple, 80 feet Buddha, step truncated pyramidal shape which it has become inspiration to. All of these aspects are very important for us. Next we are going to move towards the Nalanda University. Nalanda University is also one of the important Buddhist sites in India, and it in fact survived as a residential university in ancient time. Now we have revived this Nalanda University in modern times too, okay, and students from various parts of the world, okay, earlier from Central Asia, China, Japan, Southeast Asia, from numerous places, the students used to come and be here in this monastic complex. And this monastic complex, when it comes to the history of this complex, the Nalanda University, the basic plan, or the Nalanda University is base or foundation is laid by a person by the name of okay, Shakraditya. Okay, this is very important, Shakraditya. And in fact, this Shakraditya is considered to be a Guptan king, and he has been identified with Kumaragupta I. Okay, Kumaragupta I, in between 415 to 455 CE, he was the one who laid the foundation for the Nalanda University. See, even the Guptan Empire was a Hindu empire, it patronized Buddhism. That is the kind of collaboration or tolerance which was present at this point of time, and it was visited by two foreign travelers, Xuanzang and Yizing. Xuanzang stayed here for 2 years, and Yizing, he stayed here for nearly 10 years. And finally it was destroyed in 12th century CE by Bakhtiyar Khilji. Okay, Bakhtiyar Khilji, Qutbuddin Bakhtiyar Khilji. He is a general of Qutbuddin Aibak's general, and he is the one who destroyed it in 12th century CE. And when it comes to this structure, okay, this structure we'll going to discuss about the architecture, but here there is a famous library which is known as Dharmaganja, which had 3 large compilations of books which are known as Ratnasagara, Ratnodadi and Ratnaranjaka. Okay, Dharmaganja is the library, and 3 parts, Ratnasagara, Ratnodadi and Ratnaranjika. And here all the 3 schools of Buddhism, secular subjects, Hinduism, everything is studied here. Every school of knowledge, it is encouraged to be studied at Nalanda University. It is not just a Buddhist university, and the most typical architectural feature, I talked about how Yizing stayed here, Xuanzang stayed here, all of these things are pretty much common. And here most of the structure, it is constructed in bricks. Okay, it is constructed in bricks, and today we have 11 monasteries and 6 brick temples which survived till date. And most of the monasteries and brick temples, they have been destroyed during medieval period. There were many attacks with fire. In fact, the library was considered to be burnt with fire, and it burnt for nearly a week. Okay, during the time of Bakhtiyar Khilji, it has been written down, but that is the thing. Then apart from that, this entire structure, it has been enclosed in a walled structure. Okay, it has a prakara wall, and inside this now we have 11 monasteries and 6 brick temples which have survived. Okay, I'll show you the base outlay of this structure. Okay, these are all the monasteries, and in fact of the monasteries we have the temple structures or stupas are present here. So these are the temple structures, these are the monasteries. When it comes to these monasteries, the typical plan of these monasteries, okay, I have given it very clearly here. Okay, all the monasteries of Nalanda have some typical plan. Okay, it is the plan of a rectangular shaped structure, okay, or oblong means it is just a curved rectangle will be present. This, let's suppose this is the entrance way. Okay, on this facing the entrance way, there will be a sacred spot or where the prayers are conducted. On the sides, on both sides, okay, we have the monastic cells. Monastery means the place where, or vihara, the place where monks stay. This is the typical plan. I'll show it to you in the thing too. And this is, there is a huge veranda here which is an open meeting place or meditating place, and this is where the monks used to sleep. Okay, I'll show you the image for better clarity. Okay, see here, you can see this is the veranda which is present. These are the monastic cells, okay, on both sides. So even though the top structures have not survived, this is how the structure is present. Okay, then when it comes to these structures, okay, these structures, one second, I'm going to talk about the next one. In the big temples, the most prominent big temple is temple number 3. It is named as a temple number 3, and it is also known as Sariputta Stupa. Sariputra is a very important follower of Buddha, and in fact there were many stories on Sariputra. He is considered to be a very fast learner, and he attained enlightenment very soon when he was instructed by Buddha. Okay, and his conversion to Buddhism, Sariputra Prakarana, is a very famous Sanskrit play. In fact, it is considered to be the first Sanskrit play in India, which was written by Ashwagosha. Okay, Sariputra is a very important person in Buddhism, and his stupa is very prominent. The large pyramidal structure which you usually identify with Nalanda, this is, one second, I'm going to show you. Okay, this is the Sariputra Stupa. Here around this Sariputra Stupa there are some pillared structures. Okay, then apart from that, all of these are votive stupas. See, so many votive stupas, so many people have visited here. Okay, so all of these and Sariputra is also associated with the A Dharma Hetu inscription, which talks about the dependent origination theory in Buddhism. A Dharma Hetu, this is also very, very important. Okay, when it comes to this central structure, okay, I talked about there were nearly 7 successive constructions which have been done on this pyramidal structure, and this pyramidal structure, it can be accessed through a flight of stairs, and on top of it there is a chamber, okay, and there is a pedestal too, but the central image which once might have standed here, it is not present today. It is an iconic format, okay, and schools like Mahayana, Hinayana, Vajrayana, all the schools survived in Nalanda, okay, and there were 7 layers as talked about earlier. There were on these structures, there are on these stairs, and there were many niches on which the images of Buddha, Bodhisattva and scenes of Jataka's tales they are shown. I'll show the images for you so that you can understand it better. These are completely brick built structures, as you can see, okay, and these are the towers which are present on the 4 corners of the stupa. Then apart from that, okay, we can see that this is the niche. This is the niche which is present. All these are niche where Buddhas and Bodhisattva images are placed. This is a functional space, as pointed out earlier. It is a functional space in Buddhism, and there numerous Buddhas, Bodhisattva images and important elements of Buddhism, all of them are placed. See, one of the temples is constructed in a typical Hindu temple format, where you can see the vestibule format of the shikara. All of these things are part of the Nalanda structure. Okay, and most of the images, they are made in stucco, and the structures are built in brick structures. Okay, all of these things. Then apart from that, Nalanda during the Pala and Sena period, it became an important center for bronze image making of Buddhist and Hindu images. Okay, Buddhist and Hindu images. In fact, the Pala school of bronze images, it is associated with the center Nalanda. Nalanda is an important center for bronze sculpture making during medieval period. Apart from the stucco images which were made, see, this is the Maravijaya image and Buddha in Abhaya Mudra. Both of these images are part of the Pala school or Nalanda school of sculpture. So this is how the Nalanda is a very important university, and at one point of time, according to the account of Huansang, nearly 1,000 students came and studied at this place in Nalanda. Here we have the surviving. One thing that survives is the monastery complexes. The second thing that survives is some of the temple complexes, and of these temple complexes, the Sariputra Stupa is very, very prominent. It is a pyramidal shaped structure which can be accessed through a flight of stairs. Here there will be a flight of stairs. On top of it there is a chamber. Okay, all of these things are part of the Nalanda, and tower is also present. Votive stupas are present. Architecturally, it is very distinct from all other stupa structures, because the stupa typically has a hemispherical shape, but here the stupa is pyramidal. And votive stupas are also present. I have explained about them. So this is a Nalanda University briefly for you. It has been destroyed in 12th century AD. Now it has been restored, and it is a functional university at this point of time. Okay, we talked about the library which was present. It was destroyed by Bakhtiyar Khilji, who is a general of Qutbuddin Aibak. Yes, definitely it was not an event which can be appreciated, but at the same time, we should not read the present into the past. Today, these kind of events where you see the destruction of temples or the Buddhist stupas, you cannot consider them to be or use them for communal divisiveness in the current times, because the entire ideology at that point of time was different, and the ideology of a democratic nation today is different. Okay, at that point of time, it is a conquest state. And in order to psychologically suppress the people, the religious centers were the main targets. It has been the same world over. It's not just about India. Wherever you see war states, okay, their destruction of the holy places is the most important thing which happens. Okay, it is how it is, and we should not consider this as a template for modern politics. Definitely it is an event which should not have occurred. Okay, but we cannot read past into the present. Okay, with this conclusion, then apart from that, if you look at what are the criteria which these two sides fulfill. Okay, just for a brief recap, I am talking about these things. Okay, it is not a masterpiece of human creative genius, definitely not. To exhibit interchange of human values, yes. The Gandhara architecture is present in Mahabodhi temple, unique or exceptional testimony to a cultural tradition, yes, because no other stupa is constructed in a step truncated format in in Mahabodhi temple. This also it talks about. Then illustrative of significant stage of human history. No. Yes, definitely, maybe Buddha's attainment of enlightenment can be considered as illustrative of significant stage in human history, because it definitely changed the path of Indian religions. Then traditional human resettlement, it is not. Then heritage associated with works of outstanding universal significance. This definitely is Nalanda University. Okay, and it also exhibits interchange of human values. 2 criteria are applicable to Nalanda and nearly 3 criteria are applicable to Mahabodhi temple, and both of them are of outstanding universal value. That's why UNESCO has designated them to be the same. Okay, that's it. This finishes the lecture. And there is a question in the description below. Please do solve these questions. They are very interesting and important questions for prelims. And do subscribe to Manifest IAS. Do subscribe to Manifest IAS for more such updates. Okay, that's it. Thank you for your time.